Welcome to episode 11 of the Unfortunate Diehards podcast. I'm Evan. Say hello, my friends.
Hey guys, it's Omar.
Hello, I'm Sufjan.
All right, since I always say player now, let's all think of someone that wears number 11. I'll go first. Daniel Alfredson.
Well, let's just leave it at that there. He deserves his own. He deserves his own day.
I can't even
Aww.
Daniel Alfredson deserves his own day.
Just like Tom Pyatt last episode.
Roberto Luongo.
No, Tom Pye did it, but we just didn't care
Oh
enough.
my goodness. Episode 11. That's why we did that. Okay, I get it now. I was very concerned.
Yeah, well, why else?
Okay.
A weird game.
I thought yours, yeah.
I know what we're gonna do when we get to episode 34.
Who else wears 34? I'm gonna do a lot of research.
Gurianov.
Yes. Yes, he's a great player. Okay.
So today we'll be talking about our teams. Some of our teams are just surviving. Some of our teams, their goaltenders aren't surviving, and some of our teams are playing all right. They just can't score for some reason. But you'll figure out who those teams are in a bit. We'll talk about some surprise teams. Some teams are doing really well compared to what we initially thought they may be doing, and it is early still, but we'll dive into that a bit deeper, talk about how you should follow us on all platforms, and obviously having a head-to-head as well. So maybe we'll go from whose team's doing the best to the worst right now. So as Sufi's team is currently winning in this current moment, we'll go to Sufi first.
Oh, we're winning in this game, yes. Okay.
Although technically speaking, my team's doing better than your team. So,
yeah.
No,
Yeah, no,
but we'll let him start.
we have $40 million on the IR.
actually,
Yes. That's not including Orlov, by the way, who's not playing today. I don't know what to say, bro. It's like every game has been like, It's just we keep losing leads now because we don't have the defense to like the defensive depth to like cater to it. So I don't know. We need at least Orlov and Carlson back. And then we need like one of our forwards to come back. But now Brown is out long term, so he's just done this year. And then we have, I think Wilson's coming back in like December or something. And then I don't know when Backstrom's coming back if he is at all. So it's a lot of shifting that needs to happen. Like our offense is doing okay. I mean, we're scoring goals. We're not really producing much like at 5-on-5, which is concerning, but we'll see as players come back and as defensemen come back if that can help. But the one strong thing is goaltending, and Kemper and Lingard have been absolutely insane. And like I think the goals saved just above expected or whatever, they're as a tandem they rank like 6th in the league, and Kemper's in the top 10. And in the last 5 games, he's 1-3-1, sub 2 GAA, above a 930 save percentage, and his only win was a shutout. So things are looking worse than they actually are. I mean, I'm hoping guys come back and we start improving and stuff, but it is what it is. At this point, every time Ovechkin scores, it feels like a win anyway. So it is what it is. He scored again today, so we win automatically. Yeah. That's enough for me.
Omar, would you like to go next?
Oh, what to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs right now? Fun stuff happening in Toronto. Well, okay. They have a terrible California road trip. At least 3 out of those 4 teams should have won games. Anaheim, San Jose, and LA, in my opinion, all 3 should have won games. But it's not just that they went into California and lost 4 straight games. It's the way they lost 4 straight games in. Looking like all 4, like staying up until 10:30 for those games and watching those through, and then seeing them essentially put out lackluster performances. It wasn't even like, it just didn't feel like any of them were really even that into it, or that like were pushing hard for like doing anything to really push hard for these wins. Then they go into Anaheim in the last game of the road trip, 3-1 lead halfway to the 3rd period, and then they blow that as well. So then what happens, Marner with the 2 giveaways in the Anaheim game. We're talking about, him being benched. Was he, everyone's talking about, was he benched for long enough? Was he benched for, he went back, he broke his stick, he comes back. He played, I think he sat off one shift. And that was the big news story. Why didn't Keefe sit in the rest of the period? Is there, other issues between Keefe and Marner? All this stuff is going on now. Keefe being fired is being talked about. Barry Trotz is waiting in the background, is being talked about. And like everyone's talking, and everyone's remembering that, hey, wait, like if you pump the brakes for a second, you realize that 10 games in the season last year, and the record was either the same or very close. So it was the same story as last year's start. But they're like, no, but this is still different. This is still different. So then you go into this weekend, which was like a survival weekend. It's like Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back Boston, Carolina. And they pull off 2 wins in less than 24 hours. And they have a statement win against Philly, Diehards with the hat trick. And then all of a sudden things are looking a bit better right now. Obviously, we got 2 goalies injured right now. We got 2 on the IR. So we don't know what's going to happen with them at the moment.
Who's the guy you guys brought in? Petruzzi?
Petruzillo is his name? Petruzillo. Yeah, whatever. He's 6'6". He's 6-0 in the AHL, guys.
6'6".
Yeah, he's 6'6", so he's gonna get a game in here or there at some point this week, I think. Yeah, there's a back-to-back Friday, Saturday, so he's gonna get one of those. But yeah, right now, I don't know. We're not out of the woods in terms of what this team is. The biggest question about Toronto is, and it's always this question, but even more so this year, what is this team? Like, what is their identity? Like, when they want to play, a team like Boston and Carolina, they'll go into it and you're like, oh, look at them. They're putting on an effort. Oh, look at them. They're actually showing that, hey, maybe they can play some defense and, hold these teams to 1 and 2 goals or whatever it was. Yeah, 2-1 and yeah. So it's just weird. We don't know what this team is right now. And with the goalies on IR, Shalgren being our starter for now anyway. Apparently Murray's like a week away, but it's Matt Murray we're still talking about.
Yeah. We'll see what we get from him and how long we get it for.
It's going to be an interesting month of November. Samsonov didn't look good after that Marchand penalty shot, his knee. I don't know.
Is that where he hurt himself? Because that was insane.
Filthy goal.
Oh my goodness.
Filthy goal.
If you injure a goalie on a penalty shot,
yes,
without touching him,
and yeah, that's where his knee got injured. Actually,
that is wild.
Yeah, but that's. I guess we can put it out there. I know Evan's going to talk about the Sens, but the conversation of all those like controversial talking points, they've taken a little bit of a break right now. Not to say they won't come back. We're gonna have to see how the games coming up go. They're playing Vegas tomorrow night actually, so another test coming up. So we're gonna see how things go. But right now in Leafland, things are a bit calmer because they've put together a few good wins. So we'll see what happens. It's all up in the air. How about your Sens, Evan? After their nice start, what's happening there?
Well, for the first couple of games,
That's what's happening.
Every Sens fan, before you even say anything, Evan, every Sens fan, Nikita Zaitsev.
Well, brother, Evan, you have the record stat of their record with him versus without him.
Wow. Yes.
The funniest part, my friend the other day, he was telling me, he's like, oh, we're losing, because he's playing Zaitsev, that's why we're losing. And I was like, listen, bro, I know he's not great, but we had him too, and we still won games. But then he pulled up a few stats from me, and I was like, okay, I can't really argue this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like after the first couple games, I think we talked about like they were getting chances, not scoring. And they had like 4 games where they scored like 22 goals or something through the 4. And then Josh Norris got hurt, which kind of seemed like, oh, it's okay. We still have enough like center depth with Pinto, Stützle, Giroux, Kachuk takes face-offs. But now it's still like with a top 6 like we should be scoring more. Even a top 9 because Pinto's scoring. Maybe you'd want more offense out of Shabbat. But Brandstrom's been playing well. Sanderson is potentially already the best defenseman on the team. what I said before the season started. It's a possibility. Like his expected goals for and then versus his goals against when he's on the ice, and like chances created versus chances against are the best on the team by far. He's an effortless skater. Shabbat hasn't looked himself, but Zub's also been out for a week or two, which doesn't help because he's our best defensive defenseman. It's I don't know. It's a weird time because like Zaitsev obviously isn't helping us. Then Zub was out, and then they're still overplaying Shabbat in my opinion. Like if Sanderson's putting up numbers like this, you should be playing him at least 20 minutes a game. Like I think he's only had 20 minutes a couple times. Like play the not the heck out of the guy like you do Shabbat, but like even it out a bit more. Even when Zub's back, play those three guys like 20 plus. Um, so that's where I think the bigger issue is. Like I know some people are talking about, oh, it's specifically Zaitsev or people aren't scoring. It's like you look at the like some of the advanced stats if Senators fans are allowed to look at that, and like, Batherson and DeBrincat are in the top 10 for as they labeled it unlucky players. So their expected goals for or goals they've supposed to or should have scored or expected to score whatever this season versus what they have scored this season are I think they're like two of the top 8 worst, as in like, and I think DeBrincat was like 2 or 3, as in they've had a ton of grade A scoring chances. And if you watch the highlights of the Sens games after each one, DeBrincat always seems to have 1 or 2 that the goalie robs him, hits the post, just misses. And then Batherson still creates so much, but also just isn't scoring as much. And those are two of the guys, in my opinion, that, if not the two guys, that should be creating the most offense on the team. Like I know Giroux and Kachuk, for example, are still scoring. But if you were to ask me before the season who would have more points, Giroux and Kachuk versus Batherson and DeBrincat, I would pick the second two for sure. But they're switching the lines up. Talbot's back. Hopefully Zub's back in the next couple games. I don't know exactly what to say, but it's just it's an interesting situation for the Sens because I actually don't think they're playing as bad as their record shows. And I think Sens fans are just getting frustrated with the idea of like, oh, we're supposed to be better. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but we're still a lot of new players in the lineup that takes adjustment. We have just been unlucky for some of our offense, or as well, like against Philadelphia, like we score one goal, like yeah, I don't know. Our scoring comes in bunches, and I hope over the season that spreads out. But I'm not too worried. I know some people are freaking out, but I think it's over the next like month or so. I'm not going to say it's going to get better, but I would be more surprised if we went on like multiple 5-game losing streaks or something like that instead of like, oh, we win 2, we lose 2 sort of thing.
I mean, that's gonna, yeah. I mean, with no one, I don't think anyone thought that this team's gonna come out. They came out, well, not really flying. They lost their first 2, but then they, essentially came home and were flying at home. And then, they're on this 5-game losing streak. Yeah, you're gonna probably see a couple of these throughout the year, a few of them, like but generally at this early stage in the season, it's not like surprising that you're seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that they're not gonna still play competitive games down the stretch here, but with a team this young up front and this new up front, it's not. Even when we had Ross Leviton, what did he say? He wouldn't be surprised if they came out of the gate struggling. And like I guess we're less than 15 games in, and I guess you can kind of say their record's a bit struggling right now. So
yeah, they also had like a major injury.
Yeah.
And now Derek Brassard's in their top 6. So
yeah, well, I mean, yeah,
like that also throws a wrench into the mix. Like I don't even think that I can categorize this 5-game losing streak as like a entirely negative thing. It's more so just like realistically, if the luck had just been even for them, they would probably come out of it like at least like 500 or close. Evan, I have a question. I don't know. There's been a lot of like scrutiny for um coaching in Canada, and it seems like every single team now is just like, oh, if they're like losing like 3 or 4 games, they're like, oh, we want Barry Trotz, whatever. But
Mhm.
I saw something today on the score, and their biggest concern with the Sens was DJ Smith, and I think a lot of the stuff that you're saying with the minutes and stuff is very much coaching oriented. So do you think if the Sens continue losing, whether it's 1 goal games or they lose by 5, that DJ Smith could be out sooner rather than later?
I think it's definitely a possibility. I think um, even when they brought him in, they had labeled him as a very good development coach, which I agree he's done a really good job in. I think Dorian's also kind of played into that role with him within his like abilities throughout the years, getting people to compete for roles, like whether that was getting like a fourth line or just to compete with a guy that's breaking into the NHL. Because you don't want like positions just given to these players. And I think creating that internal competition uh, made a lot of like the homegrown talent better, whether that was Pinto, Batherson, um, Zub. Even like initially, he wasn't playing. Like for the first like 10 games of his first like season we signed him, we barely played. And then it was like, oh, this guy's actually kind of good. But like you're creating this atmosphere where people had to fight for their job and they then want to try to keep their job and keep playing well instead of like, oh, this guy's supposed to be good, we'll put him in, kind of like, like Lafreniere and Byfield kind of had. And now like Lafreniere's having a decent season, but like if you go back and redraft now, I feel like some people would change that. And that's just one example. But yeah, I think he's done well for the development side. I don't know, um, like obviously Dorian came out with comments today or yesterday or something like that, saying like, "Oh, DJ's our coach," blah blah blah. Like you're not just going to be like, "Oh yeah, our coaching sucks," whatever. It's PR, but I think it's definitely, excuse me, like a possibility. Um, I wouldn't also be surprised even if they didn't have a great season. They let DJ Smith go to the end of the year and then switch over on the off season. Just there isn't expectations to make the playoffs this year, but then maybe next season the groups matured a little bit. I don't know if they extend someone, make a trade, whatever, and then you maybe have that more like whether it's a different coach, like a player that hasn't coached before, or it's one of the recycled old men that everyone jokes about, but someone maybe with
Yeah,
experience.
Babcock though. Babcock would not be the guy. Honestly, um the reason that coaching's talked about more this year, I find, is because Barry Trotz is available right now, or I mean, Barry Trotz is gonna be available apparently in a month or
No one
so,
even knows if he
potentially.
wants to coach. Like,
Well, what they're saying is potentially December time he could be looking to come back in. Like that, there's
that's the thing though.
yeah.
Like, I feel like he would have already done it if he wanted to. Like,
No,
because he
no.
has offers.
Apparently, he specifically said that he has some things he needs to take care of, and he's looking at December as
That's such a
potentially a
specific
time when
time. So he's
he's.
just waiting for someone to get fired.
No, no, he's looking like I think there's personal like family things he's got to take care of. He
No,
said
no, I
apparently,
understand that, but
yeah.
he's essentially waiting for someone to get fired.
Well,
Yeah.
he'll make himself open to the conversation if a team wants to reach out to him.
And then
Yeah,
someone is more likely to get fired.
yeah, but I mean, I think that's why even in Toronto was talked about. Someone's like, "Hey, look, Barry Trotz is there." In Ottawa right now, they're on a 5 game losing streak. Hey, look, Barry Trotz is there. The
Literally
thing with
everywhere,
yeah,
bro.
but the thing with DJ Smith, and this is essentially it's kind of eerie how it's playing out similar to Mike Babcock because not in the sense of he did the weird mind games and the weird like stuff, toxic stuff in the dressing room like Babcock did in Toronto and Detroit and stuff. But I mean, in terms of his ice time decisions, this is this exact kind of stuff that Zaitsev in Toronto during the Babcock era was like, why is Zaitsev playing so much? And again, you have, why does Zaitsev keep coming back into the lineup? And it honestly, it kind of, I always thought in my head, I'm like, these coaches and stuff, sure, in press conferences, they say they don't listen to media and stuff like that, or they don't listen to the radio, they don't look at the sports news and all that stuff because they don't, they want to filter that stuff out because it will affect their job in negative ways or whatever. But if you really think about it, with DJ Smith, it's pretty clear. I don't think he reads or looks at anything. Because you can't. Does he even know the stat on friggin' Zaitsev? Like you can't play this guy this
Bro,
much.
that's okay. That's the weird thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
A little bit like I think it was like last week or something. DJ Smith was just spewing out advanced stats,
Yeah.
and like all my life, I could swear that Zaitsev was one of the worst analytical players in the entire NHL.
Oh yeah, since
Like
Toronto, since he started.
I
Yeah.
think the only one worse is Ristolainen, who is like regarded as the worst defenseman in the NHL according to analytics. So I don't know. I don't
But
know. But
yeah,
what is Zaitsev like really tough or something? Like, why does he get minutes at all?
I don't. That's the thing. We don't know what he because apparently, according to the stats, yeah, we know that they're like 0-6 with the lineup, and they're the high danger scoring chances against him are like the numbers of that are pretty high, as well. I don't think he offers anything in terms of offense. I don't just I from what it looks like, he doesn't.
Was
He
he like a
doesn't.
filler or something?
He doesn't. He literally provides no positive side to the game. He literally provides nothing positive from what the stats say and from what people say when they watch tennis games, right? Like they don't. It's like he doesn't provide anything positive. But then you're like, okay, you have like thousands of fans, being clearly say that you have stats saying this. Then you have one coach who's like, no, this is my guy, kind of thing. And that's the mindset. I'm always wondering, like, what is in a coach's head with players that everyone else seems to not like.
Mm.
Well, I think there are things of like, for example, if you were to use an example of the Sens and all the other players on the team, you have Shabbat, Sanderson, and Brandstrom, who are much more like offensively gifted players. I would say Sanderson being more well-rounded than the others. Then you have Zub, who is usually your defensive guy who's out. So you're having Zaitsev as a guy who has the ability and who has logged minutes before and like blocks shots. And as well, maybe looking at it from the sense of like if they're trying to move a contract, you have to play him so that maybe someone likes him enough that you can flip him for something or nothing or a little bit of a sweetener or less of a sweetener.
It's having the opposite effect right now.
And I think like they didn't want to call up Jacob Bernard Docker, Lassie Thompson right away. I think they wanted to let them like get comfortable, dominate a bit more, and have them come out probably like throughout the season, not kind of right away. So then, when Zoo went down, they were like, "Okay, let's put Zaitsev in." And then recently they called Jacob Bernard Docker up, and they sent him back down, and then they're unsure if Zub's going to play, so they called him back up. So he's supposed to play with Shabbat tomorrow, which I think, and I did say would happen, that if he did come up, he'd probably play with Shabbat. And he seems like he has the potential to be a good partner for Shabbat because he's just steady Eddie. Don't really notice him ever, which isn't a bad thing for a defenseman if you don't notice them, especially if they're not like known to be offensive. Just being like, oh yeah, I guess they weren't on for good or bad, like Labushkin or something. You're like, sure, that works. So I don't know.
We're noticing Shabbat too.
I'm just trying to like make sense because there's obviously he's not this because he thinks Zaitsev's like a god amongst men out there. Like there's definitely reasons. So you just have to try to
Just a really nice
make
guy.
maybe. I haven't met him, so
Just doesn't really
What's
doesn't want to go to Belleville.
what's really interesting, especially nowadays in the NHL, more recent times in the NHL, is the topic of or the position itself of coaching. Is because like I feel like in the NHL, coaches in the last decade or even in the last 15 years, their position has changed so quite dramatically, in terms of the way they're viewed. Like a coach was viewed, I think, a lot different, back, in the 2010s or even in the 2000 between 2000 2010 kind of thing, compared to what a coach is now. Like right now, coaches are much more on the hot seat very frequently compared to when they used to be. Like you didn't have firings as quickly, and you didn't have conversations as quickly. And like, and up like for example, like up until like Mike Babcock, what in Toronto was the last time a coach was kind of in that untouchable mode where he's like he's the guy who's carrying the ship, because when he came to Toronto, he was the highest earner. He was like no player was even earning as much as him for like until Matthews, Marner, and Nylander got their new contracts. Like no one was even earning more than him. So he had like Matthews and Marner and like entry level deals, and he was still the highest paid person on the team. So he was the guy carrying the ship, and he was the one like no one's gonna mess with Mike Babcock. And then he's gone, and then now like the conversation around Sheldon Keefe in Toronto is like, well, like he's not like you've got Matthews, you've got Marner, you've got Tavares, you've got these guys who are making so much more money than him, who are the ones carrying the team. Like he doesn't have the voice of a coach who's like, who's gonna like what kind of voice does he have in that dressing room compared to a coach, compared to what Mike Babcock had when he was in Toronto, right? Like, in their first few years, like what's the difference? So that's kind of what I feel like the coaching conversation is more around in the league, where it's like I think players have more of a say these days. I don't know.
Leadership group.
More of a leader, like the leadership group, the highest paid players, like these are more like considered more of like, these are your more untouchables, and the coach is the one who's and the coach has historically always been the one who takes the falls when the team's not doing well a lot of times. Yeah. But I feel like the coach nowadays more is like your team's gotta perform always, otherwise you're out. Like, and you're not gonna be taken, you're not gonna be given the benefit of the doubt as often as you used to be.
I think it's also like an easier, like an easier way out if you're like in Vegas, for example, in 2 not great years. You're like, well, must be coaching. And yeah, having a really good start to this year. But it is interesting, like immediately, like I feel like as fans as well, people like players do take a lot of heat, but it's like easier to blame systems almost, because you're like in Washington, for example, they could always score goals. And I think the only reason Barry Trotz was so good in Washington, not saying he's like a bad coach, saying he's a phenomenal coach, but I think why he was good in Nashville but great in Washington is because they had that offense that then could also work with his systems. So I think finding, that coach that works with the personnel there too. But I also think there's just such a short leash nowadays that it's kind of like, why, like it's you don't even give some of these guys a fair chance almost to like learn how these players think or work, or the chemistry among the people, especially if you're like a team like what the heck can you say? Like Washington, when you're a contender, you're getting like new people probably every year at the deadlines in the off season to try to keep this old group going every year, push for the playoffs. So it's like if you're getting a new guy in there, however often, it would have probably changed a lot for them. They probably wouldn't have won a cup. So I think it like Barry Trotz, in my opinion, would be a really good fit with a team like one of the Ontario teams, because I think they do have, I'm not saying a Washington offense per se at the time, but probably like you could compare it to it just because they have high end top 6 players. And that probably would both benefit from a defensive system, and that offense could hopefully offset that like defensive play enough that the teams would be successful with him as a coach.
I think that the thing is, even if you don't get Barry Trotz himself and you find someone like Barry Trotz, just like, because I don't know if it worked necessarily as well in Ottawa. I think in Toronto maybe more so, just because the thing with Washington was they already had tried a very defensive coach in Dale Hunter previously, and that didn't work at all because he just sucked all the creativity out of the team. Where Barry Trotz knew how to work with a veteran group and let the players like do what they wanted to offensively, just like instilled certain defensive things that made them a little more like that actually helped their offense even more. Cause like the whole thing that he told Ovechkin was just come back deeper into the zone and then it'll help your offense more because you'll generate more speed or whatever. But I think the only reason that also worked is because the players also had a ton of experience with playoffs. Very short experiences with playoffs, but they already had that basis and like they knew what they were doing offensively. It was just a matter of fine tuning certain things, and that helped them get over the hump. And I think because Toronto has had those reps in the playoffs, like they realistically just need to fine tune certain things that maybe help them later in games, and that would help them get over the hump. Ottawa obviously will get to that point at certain points, but they've actually they've made the final recently more than Toronto. So
Barry Trotz would be interesting in Ottawa.
I don't know if that would work as well as it would work in
It
Toronto.
would work very well in Toronto.
That it would
It would work
probably
very well in Toronto.
better in Toronto, but I also think it's I know Barry Cross said something about like playing for or working for an original six team or something, but I think in Toronto it would make more sense, but also being the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs would probably be a headache and a half. Like in Ottawa, I feel like it's more tolerable, but then on the counterpoint again, Toronto will probably offer you like 3 times as much money. Um, so I don't think he'd be a bad fit anywhere realistically because he's that good of a coach. But yeah, I do agree that Toronto, I could definitely see him.
Toronto just makes more sense at this point in the team's like stages.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I also think that they're a little closer to winning a cup, and I don't know how much longer Barry Trotz is planning on sticking around if he already retired once.
Yeah, but I don't know. Barry Trotz, I think of someone. It's going to be interesting where he ends up because the rumors are going to start flying as soon as he says he's available.
Rumors are going to start flying as soon as someone gets fired.
Yeah, that as well.
Because you have to think
if the offer is sweet enough, like if an original six team ends up firing a coach in the next month or so, and they're like, "Hey Barry, like you want this job? Is he going to take it? Like is he going to be like, oh no, I'm still not ready. I need another few months or whatever before I come back." Hot topic in the NHL, that we probably should address a little bit at least. Mitchell Miller.
Is that his name?
Mitchell Miller, right?
Mitchell
Miller, and the Boston Bruins.
Do you know anything about this, Evan?
I do. I saw this on Twitter.
So
did you think that Boston thought it was just an isolated incident?
So the funny thing about this is that Boston signs this guy, and then they interview the players, and Bergeron, Marchand, Foligno, they're all like, "Oh, we're not very happy with this signing, and we're not very like that's not our culture. We're not, it's about inclusivity, it's about respect, and he hasn't shown that he's behaved that way in his life and stuff. So this is not something that we're very happy about necessarily." And then there's the whole conversation about, did Boston know? Like, did they do the research about like, hey, he did this thing once and then he's changed himself for like, what is it? And then 2 days later, he's gone. So.
Well, yeah, there was the whole Bettman thing because Bettman was like, he's not even gonna be allowed to play in the NHL anytime soon, or if at all.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I thought it was pretty much out there that it wasn't an isolated incident. Like I thought when it came out the first time, it was pretty widely.
Yeah.
Like the media put it out there pretty well. It was that he bullied him since he was a kid, and
at 14.
And it led to like he bullied him for a while. Like, it wasn't just like one thing, and a lot of the gruesome details and stuff like that. Like it takes a lot for bullying to turn into a juvenile case. So, and then on top of that, he didn't have any sort of real apology and no remorse for his actions. So like it's I don't know. It was just a dumb thing.
And then Cam Neely, the Bruins president, was it today or yesterday, had a press conference about it. And he wasn't. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't see the whole press conference. I don't know if any of you did, but I saw a little bit of it, and it seemed like he wasn't really aware of like.
I can play dumb, bro.
Yeah. So I found that was an interesting press conference because I was like, the president. I mean, it seemed like he was saying, oh, he has to figure out, how this went through, what kind of research was done in terms of his whether this was an isolated incident or if he done more stuff that like came out and he still got signed. So there was that aspect of it. But anyway, it was.
The thing is, there's been like he was a good enough hockey player that like if all this stuff didn't happen, someone would have signed him already. So I think it was a big enough red flag that no one did.
Yeah.
And on top of that, the team literally had to unpick him and like forfeit him in a draft. So
Well, he was the Arizona pick, right?
yeah,
Who they picked but then dropped.
they had to forfeit it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think everything kind of worked out the way that it should have. Boston got a lot of bad PR for no reason, but it is what it is.
I mean, see, for me, when I look at incidents like this, like for example, Boston signing Mitchell Miller, like I don't know about you guys, but I'm not buying this. Oh, we didn't know it wasn't
Yeah,
as it is. Okay, so no one's buying that. So so they sign him, and then the only reason they drop him is because first of all, their players, the backlash, their own players aren't happy, and then backlash to the media. So then okay, let's drop him. But then there was and I can't remember if Arizona did the same thing, like they picked him with knowing it or what.
No. So like the kid came out after that happened, like after he got drafted. But the case already happened. It was just that it wasn't publicized.
Okay. And then so there was that. And then a couple of years ago there was that player Montreal drafted and then they had to drop as well. Who was that again?
No, they never had to drop
They never
him.
dropped him.
That was a much different incident.
That was controversial, as well, right? Who was that again?
That was Logan Mailloux. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
But that's completely different.
Yeah.
This is like, I don't know.
And then we got the incident this year with the World Junior team, which is whatever under investigation, all that stuff. So obviously we're not gonna. But like, so the conversation keeps coming up in the NHL is like like
it's more hockey culture.
Is hockey culture tainted? Is hockey culture not learning? Is hockey culture just forgetting, like not considering any of these things a big deal? It's just about
There's been issues with hockey culture for a while. It's just like, I don't know. I think people are being more aware of it now, which is better. I don't like that incidents needs to happen before action happens, but that's kind of how the world works at this point. So, but
Yeah, I feel like I agree that he should not play in the NHL, and what he did was awful, disgusting. Like if I knew him personally or like at all, I wouldn't want to associate him with whatsoever. The only thing I would say is that I have like I don't know him, so it's like I have a small amount of like, okay, if this happened when he was like 14, 15, you would like to think that he would learn from this and realize what he did. And the fact that he didn't apologize initially was awful. But you would just like to think that yes, he's not getting to play professional hockey, at least in North America, because of this.
But Evan, it isn't just that he didn't apologize at the time. He hasn't apologized at all.
No, I know.
Come on. I'm sorry. My Washington Capitals just scored a goal to seal the game.
No, it was gross.
Yeah,
it was gross.
It was a nice goal.
Yes. Anyways,
yeah,
probably should change this conversation.
You'd hope that from like how much backlash there's been the multiple times they've tried to draft him, sign contracts, whatever, that he's eventually gonna get it in his head that like, okay, what I did was like genuinely bad and why it was bad and how this can affect me and other people's careers and lives in general. So I'm not gonna say like I feel bad, but I would just really hope that he realizes eventually, like he's gotten multiple like chances by getting drafted or stuff. Like people are showing like, oh, you're a good enough hockey player that we would have liked to have had you on our teams. But him hopefully realizing that like, okay, I did this awful thing, and now what am I going to do about it? And at least try to make it the most right it can be from now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or just apologize and go do something with that college degree that he has. That's pretty much all he can do. He's not playing hockey anymore.
Yeah, he's not playing hockey. His hockey career.
Okay. I'm sure they probably wouldn't care.
That is also the other option.
I guess he could.
They don't do this much research in the case.
Yeah. You have
you have stick. Oh no, we gotta stop talking about this, bro.
No, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was interesting weekend for the Boston Bruins.
Oh God.
Okay, I heard you talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs having a California road trip. And I would like to talk about a specific player that plays in California, lighting up the league because he's the best to ever do it. My favorite player of all time,
I was struggling to think who it was.
Erik Karlsson.
What's that on ice?
So our last
percentage?
episode had Sufi here claiming that Erik Karlsson is not a Hall of Famer.
Not right now. At that time,
Sure, yes.
before his 10 goals and
And I think he's still sticking by that statement until Karlsson follows this up with a season or two of like consistent.
Well, my whole thing is if he stays healthy and like just puts up 60 points, which is looking like he does,
Yeah.
then yes. So,
but he's tearing it up. I think I'm gonna put it out there, and you tell me if you think this is a possibility. But I think he could be, trying even harder right now and playing really well
because
to
I said that.
potentially get traded.
No, it's because I said that.
To potentially go to a contender. I don't know.
But I don't think he scored 10 goals just by trying harder.
No, of course
There's
not.
a large okay. I think the 10 goals also, like, if you look at shooting regression and stuff like that, he is playing out of his mind right now, and like it's as lucky as like any other player that has a lot of goals right now and on very not as many shots. But the thing is, like, him playing to leave San Jose, I think it's feasible because he has to play as hard as possible for someone to want to take $11.5 million on their team.
Yeah.
So if he does want to leave San Jose for that reason, then like he's doing everything that he can right now.
The number suggests Toronto would be interested.
Oh Lord. Right-handed, can skate, can pass.
No, I'm saying the number 11.5 mil. I'm saying that price tag because we got two players at that price tag already.
You're gonna have to get someone's going out the other way. We got Nylander going the other way.
I think actually the thing that helped him the most is even when I would watch games when Burns and him were on the same team, they would split everything up constantly. And like, if not even favor Burns more, maybe because he was a shark longer, or he takes more shots, whatever. I think Burns was more of a, like, if you look at his stats throughout the years, he's had like good offensive seasons as defenseman, but it's been like more in the recent past. And it's partially also just because he throws everything at the net. He's more of like a good at finding lanes to get the shots through versus Karlsson's more of like a tactile attacker, like makes like better passes in my opinion. I think he takes like smarter shots. I think having similar to when he was in Ottawa, maybe like somewhat of an underwhelming forward group. Like they have a couple good players still on offense, but having the reins to do what he wants as the number one defenseman definitively, I think is kind of similar to his old Ottawa days, and him being completely healthy also really helps.
Yeah.
All true. The thing is, I think the worst thing I've seen in my entire life, aside from Justin Hall and Muzzin on a pairing, is when they tried to put Karlsson and Burns out there together, and it was just a gong show.
There's worse pairings than Justin Hall and Jake Muzzin, okay?
No.
Whatever pairing Zaitsev is on.
Not even. I think even a Karlsson Zaitsev pairing would be fine. Or Karlsson or Burns Zaitsev pairing would be fine. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, the Burns leaving has a positive impact on him, definitely.
Karlsson could not score a goal the rest of the season and have a positive goal season for him. So, like, I think since the 20-goal season, he probably hasn't anything close to 10 or like around 10 maybe. But
well, I think my point too, like, I'm not saying for sure, but even like the past like I don't know how many years he's been in San Jose, like 3 or 4. I think if Burns wasn't there the entire time, he would have easily had, like, he still had pretty good point production in San Jose if you go look at the stats realistically.
There was just that 1 year that he had like 20 points in 50 games where I think
but then the other ones it was like 50 and 60 something.
It was like 40 and it was basically like 40 and like 65 kind of range. So he was putting up like 50-point numbers.
Look it up right now. But I think realistically, if you didn't have Burns there the entire time, 100% people would have trashed him a lot less because I still think he probably could have been a 60 to 70 point guy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. 40, 45. 45 and 53 was the first year from Ottawa, and then after that it was 40, 56, 22 and 52, 35 and 50. So like around 50.
No 60 games, Sufi, idiot.
Okay. Crap, 19 and 14. He has as many goals as he did last year.
He's like what, second in goals at one point, and he's top 3 or 4 in scoring right now. Like it's
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah, he's been hot for sure. It's
Yeah,
just,
he's hot. We'll see if it like.
well, bro, there's no
Yeah,
way.
so hot.
Well, the goal pace obviously up, but I mean just the point pace and everything.
Is Carlson going for 50 and 50 like
Yeah.
Matthews was?
He's going for it, that's for sure. Well, it was kind of funny that like 1 week for sure, like I would just check every San Jose game, like, oh, did you score again? It was like, oh my gosh, he had 2 goals. Oh my gosh, he has 3 goals. Oh my gosh, he has another goal and 2 assists.
He has oh my goodness. His career shooting percentage is 6.8. His shooting percentage this year is 22.2.
Yeah.
He's on some lethal finishing streak right now.
Yeah.
He is Duncan Robinson open.
Damn, in the year that he had 22 points, he had a 1.8 shooting percentage. Oof.
Nice. Because Burns was taking all the shots, and so he had to freaking make a couple.
That was the year he had 45 points. Anyways, it is what it is. Carlson's a good player. He's decent. See a lot of Norris twos. I wonder which one's Dowdy.
Oh, that
we're all drinking. I saw this online. It's like Carlson's having a great year. Can't wait for Dowdy to win.
Hey, he's not even my Norris front runner right now.
Yeah,
it's a little man from Buffalo.
It's Morgan Riley.
Oh, Yoka.
Oh,
yes, Owen Power. No, Rasmus.
I want to talk about if you want to pull up standings. I just went over some teams quickly and saw where they were standing, and then thought back to what we had initially said. So New Jersey's pretty high up. Philadelphia's been a surprise. Winnipeg's in a positional spot in their what a division. Thank you.
Yes, everything I hear about them is negative except Hellebuck. It's weird.
I mean, they're winning, so I'm just gonna say it.
That division is, oh my god.
Seattle is in a playoff spot. I mean, still early, but still surprising. Vegas, I think some of us had them to just miss or just make playoffs. St. Louis is really bad, and Pittsburgh hasn't been doing well either after having like over 100 points last season. So there's been some like pretty surprising positions so far in teams, and some of them may be underperforming, getting unlucky, but some of them, like Philadelphia, just working their butt off, probably because of John Tortorella.
No, bro, Philly
finding out some wins.
Philly is the difference between Philly and New Jersey. First off, like New Jersey has like more points and stuff. Every single thing is saying that New Jersey is going to sustain their success, and every single thing is saying that Philly shouldn't have had any success. It's been Carter Hart has like the highest high danger save percentage in like years. It is absolutely insane how well he's playing right now. And I think with New Jersey, it's kind of the opposite that's happening. Like that entire team is being carried by every other aspect of their team except for goaltending. And now Vanecek's actually playing decent. So like they're stringing like I think they have 6 wins in their last 6 games, 9-1 in their last 10. But their advanced stats are like off the charts. And if you look at any game that they've played, even the one where the Caps beat them 6-3, they are dominating every single game. Like it is. I think that all the years of the Devils being really bad, even though people had some kind of hope for them, is kind of over. And like, I think everyone was so down on them that now the opposite is kind of happening. I don't know if they're going to finish first in the Metro. I don't think they are, but they're looking more and more like this is like a sustainable thing for them. Like, especially with the core pieces that they have there, and like Hamilton being healthy is a huge thing as well. And Hughes being healthy, and Bratt playing out of his mind, and Heischer being healthy and playing really good. Like they're also very deep on offense now, which I think a lot of people kind of overlooked.
I mean, like Taber freaking neck. How many top 3 picks do you need to be good? My goodness. They had Jack Hughes.
The recipe.
What?
The recipe. You just keep sucking until you're good. They kind of just did that.
Okay, for a second I thought that comment was like related to something else, and I was like, what? Anyways.
To be fair, that's kind of what Montreal's doing right now. It's like just suck until like you keep stocking up those young players to replace the Mike Hoffmans and Dadonovs and I don't know the other old players, whatever they are, and
Keep sucking.
eventually
They've been bad for 2 years.
no, but that's what they're heading towards. I'm saying
Yeah.
because now they have like the positive young assets that are being tarnished by the Hoffmans of the world, and eventually they will rise as a team. I mean, you saw them firsthand when you went to the game. Like the young players are exciting, everything else is not.
Yeah, I mean Slavkovsky is so slow. Like
He, I think he looks a lot slower than he is. And he's,
he doesn't look 235 or whatever he is, but like my goodness, I think him and Shane Wright would both benefit not playing the NHL this year.
I think every single draft pick that came out of last year should be in the AHL, except no, every single one. None of them have looked good. Slavkovsky, as negative as he has played, has the most goals out of any draft pick from last year. So I don't know. I don't think any of them should be there. Shane Wright has also looked like everything I was saying Shane Wright would be.
The thing that bothers me is that I think there's this because you have like Matthews and McDavid and people like that. People almost have this expectation that every draft class, the first couple guys should make the NHL right away and will be effective right away, which is totally unrealistic. Like you have draft classes where you have a generational talent, and you have some that it's not super strong. You might get like a top 6 forward or like maybe like a first line center for a couple of years out of the first round or first overall pick. And people just expect that, oh, you're first overall. Okay, you should be able to jump right into the NHL and be effective, which I think is totally unrealistic. Like, look at the past few drafts, like multiple of the top 5 picks, like the Stutzel draft that I was talking about earlier, like multiple of the top 5 picks are like everyone's like, shouldn't they be better now? And then like same thing with this past year. It's like I think it's so much more valuable, especially if you're not going to be a great team right now, or if you are like New Jersey, for example. Yeah, they drafted what 3rd overall for Nemec. Yeah, you don't need him right now, so don't bother using him if you don't need him, or if you're going to be bad regardless, put him somewhere else. Like if you're a mediocre team, I think that would even maybe make the most sense if you're going to play them maybe in like the top 6 or something. But if you're playing Shane Wright on the 4th line or Slavkovsky on the 3rd line or something,
They have Slavkovsky in the 4th line right now. It's useless for him. Like,
yeah, it's useless. And I think like sure the Rangers tried to put Lafreniere in the top 6 a bit, but I just don't think he was ready for that. And I think that like comparing it to Stutzel, maybe Lafreniere will have a higher ceiling. I don't know, but or at least Stutzel was playing against men the year before, so he was maybe even more used to that kind of style of game almost. So I don't know. I think that's something I don't love, and I think that Ottawa does a good job of usually. Like Sanderson, yeah, the drafted same year as Stutzel. He played 2 years, just doing his thing, like dominating in the NCAA. Like Batherson, he wasn't a consistent guy till he was like 22 or something. Like, yeah, he was a late round pick, but like they definitely had him. Could have called him up multiple more like other times because he was doing really well in the AHL. But they wanted to make sure that when he came up, he was going to continue that dominance at every level. So that's something that kind of like I don't know if it's like irritates me, but like I think people just casual hockey fans have unrealistic expectations just because they were a good hockey player at one level doesn't mean they will make that jump seamlessly, you know.
it's weird how it seems to be that like either a draft class is like really deep or it's not. There's no like in between. It's weird that it works out that way because last year's draft is like you could say that none of the players should be in the NHL right now. And I'm looking at the 2019 draft right now, and like that draft is very, very deep, but it was very, very spread out. Like you had Hughes at 1, amazing. Kako at 2, Doc 3, Byram, very good. Sider, very good at 6. Cousins is looking good. Zegras at 9. Boldy at 12. Spencer Knight at 13. Cole Caulfield at 15. Newhook at 16. You had your Lassie Thompson at 19 and McMichael at 25. Like, and then Pinto at 32, and like even Kaliev at 33. Like, all these guys are spread out around the first round, and like that draft is looking like one of the deepest drafts ever. And a lot of those guys didn't really start producing until like their second or third year. Like, even the only one that really produced right as soon as he got in the league was Zegras, and that's literally it. Even Hughes took a couple of years, and Doc is finally looking good now after 170 games. And Boldy was in college for every year until last year. So,
but you could even argue right now, like I don't know if this is an outrageous, other than like maybe Hughes or whatever, but like Boldy's maybe like a top 5 player in that draft right now, and he was the one that didn't jump in right away. Like he is like was almost point per game last season when he came after the NCAA season. He is somewhere around that right now. Like you have to realize at some points, like it's not a bad thing, like letting them
that's the only thing. Like, right, you're exactly right, because literally the only one that stepped in and started producing is Zegras. Like, the ones that took time and like didn't play right away is Caulfield, who's I think definitely a top 5 player in that draft. Sider didn't play right away. Boldy didn't play right away. Newhook didn't play right away.
Pinto didn't play right away.
Pinto didn't play right away. Byram didn't play right away. McMichael, I guess he's playing now, but he still hasn't been playing. Like, you're exactly right. Like, these guys take longer to develop sometimes. And I think like we have less of these drafts now where the guys that take more time to develop and then turn into, like, there's a ton of top 6 forwards in this draft and a lot of potential first liners, but you're gonna have drafts like the Lafreniere draft where you get a bunch of like top 9 guys and maybe one star, maybe one top 6 player, which you're exactly right about.
Usually right. So
What's interesting is that we
Boldy has
are
49 points in 58 games, and he's only okay.
who does?
Boldy,
Okay.
and he's 10 and 11 this year, 39 and 47 last year. And he just dominated every level. He went in the AHL. He literally made it so that they couldn't put him in the AHL anymore because he had 28 points in 24 games. And in college, he was insane as well. So he just refused to play at a lower level.
Yeah, what's interesting with the surprise team so far is that we're getting close to the quarter season mark. Like, we're at about 13 games or so from a bunch of these teams played, 12, 13 games. So we're getting to that quarter season mark in the next couple of weeks-ish. We're going to be there. And we're seeing like teams like Tampa like pick it up and get back. They had a rough start, but they're playing like they can again and then rising up the standings. Even Toronto with the rough start, they're back to kind of where you expect them to be in the standings.
Detroit, baby.
Detroit, surprisingly still up there. Buffalo, they had a little bit of a drop just because they've lost a couple of games, but then again, they're still right in the hunt of a division spot still. And the only ones that are like a little bit further out of it right now, although Montreal's not even that far out of it, but
I didn't know they had that many ones.
Yeah, but like Montreal, Ottawa, and Montreal and Ottawa really are really the two that are a bit further behind.
And Montreal's only 3 points out.
And Montreal's only 3 points out, exactly. But it's shaping up to be an interesting season right now. Like, we're like in the Atlantic anyway, Detroit and Buffalo are very interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, Detroit is a little more legit than Buffalo. I think Buffalo was riding hot goaltending for a while.
What Buffalo does every year, though, they're like good for the first couple weeks.
I don't know. The last couple of years, they've literally been bad from the start.
Yeah, they've been pretty bad from the start.
No. Look, ask Austin.
Oh my god!
Here, the first couple weeks, they always win like a.
Okay.
Everyone's like, "Whoa, are they legit?"
No. But the thing with this year though is that a lot of their positives seem sustainable. It's just as a team, like they just don't have enough to keep it.
I'm just pointing out that's a trend.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. I want to see what it actually is, but like, regardless, the positive of Buffalo is like, okay, Dahlin is looking like he's going to be like reaching a different level of stardom in the next like over this year and the next couple of years, and I think he's kind of developing in the same sense as like Victor Hedman, like where he's having the kind of the same trajectory at like the exact same age range pretty much as well. And in the early Tampa teams, Hedman was pretty much the same thing where he wasn't surrounded by as much talent and he kind of grew with the team. And then he had a year where he popped off, and Dahlin is doing that right now. Owen Power has lived up to everything so far that he's been as advertised as. Um, and then I was just looking at like their prospect pool and everything. They're very deep everywhere, and including goaltending as well. Like they have two major goalie prospects on top of two goalies right now that are playing well, albeit one of them is probably going to retire at some point soon. But yeah, the other thing is the one team that I was right about, because I haven't been right about many, is Boston. Did I think that they were going to go 11-2 without Marchand and McAvoy? No, but and now
Boston
I'm
is making
very.
me look so stupid right now.
I think Evan had them play.
I had them out. I think
Yeah.
Evan had them in still. I had them out.
Yeah, I had them in, and I was like, bro, if they,
Yeah.
I was like, if they go 500, well, Marchand and McAvoy are out, they'll be fine. They went 11-2. So,
So
I
funny.
mean, my hot takes also happening, guys. So far,
What was your hot take again?
Winnipeg will be in a position of divisional spot or like a top 3 spot.
that's a little less convincing when Colorado is behind them. And
Hey, we take that.
Also, you know how you said like Vegas was blamed a lot for coaching?
What do
DeBoer
they?
went to Dallas, and now they're 8-3-1. So I don't even know if DeBoer was a problem. Was it literally just like that? Might have literally just been like a system thing, but I don't know. Dallas's first line is the best first line in the league, and it's hard to argue against that at least this season, just by how they've been at 5-on-5 and like how much they've produced. And Jason Robertson didn't even have a training camp, and he's like been absolutely insane. And it's, I don't know, they're not even being carried by one line anymore because Seguin and Ben are both a point a game now, and that itself is like a huge thing when you're paying them $20 million combined. And we all said like you're going to need one of those guys to get going if you want to be a contender, and both of them are going now. So Dallas is looking like a really strong team that they're still competing and playing well, and they have a 3-game win streak without Ottinger even playing. And when he's back, they're going to be even stronger. So
Yeah, Dallas was the team I heard on Chicklets that they were saying like, that's the one team that I have no idea how they're gonna play this season.
Yeah.
I kind of agreed. Like they have pieces at every position that like Ottinger, like obviously what he did in the playoffs is or was kind of not sustainable. Like yeah, he's still playing really well, but like that was ridiculous.
you know what's
I've-
weird? His goals against like above expected and stuff is exactly the same. He's still playing the exact same that he was.
Yeah. 82 game season, it's not gonna keep up. And if it does, then we have another Shesterkin.
Same age.
Then like yeah, like Ben and Sagan taking a step that helps. Miro Heiskanen being Miro Heiskanen is just a huge help in general. I don't know, it's an interesting one. And like, do you guys know how old Joe Pavelski is and he's still playing that well? Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna be, I don't know when his birthday is, but like in 2023, he's turning 39. Like that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he like last season was his best point season of his career, and he might even break that this year. Like that's ridiculous.
The thing is, I think Ben might end up having to go regardless because they have to sign Rope Hintz, and the way he's playing, it's looking like an 8x8 kind of situation, and they can't really afford that right now. So, like, they already got Robertson at a discount, but in 3 years after this year finishes, they're gonna have to sign Robertson, and now he's playing towards being like a $10 million player, which right now you probably could have gotten him at 8 mil if you sign him long term. So there's a lot of rough cap things happening going forward, and hopefully they were just playing the percentages with how much the salary cap is going to go up and stuff. But as the cap goes up, the players are going to want more as well. So we'll see how that goes. Nashville has looked horrible.
Yeah. We should do our head to head.
It's-
Yes. So I have a head-to-head for you guys today. I think two players that have a decent two-way game. I think that them both being captains can weigh into this as well. One of them repaying someone for the bet he made them lose. So
Hmm?
this one is going to be
Oh,
Bo Horvat versus Dylan Larkin. Who would you rather have on your team? I'll go first. Um, to me, it was a tough one. I think like they each bring different things to the, but I think they both are a similar like value of player. Um, I personally am leaning towards Bo Horvat. I think being a young, I know they're both young captains or younger captains, but I think he's done pretty well as a captain. I think that he's super consistent. Like I think um, he's like always scoring like seems like 25 goals, gets you like 60 to 70 points, whatever it is. And when you need him to score, like him and JT Miller right now seem like they're the guys. When you think like, oh, Pedersen or Hughes, something like no, like Bo Horvat's always like in the thick of it and can do whatever you need him to. Like he'll go in the corners, he'll um, score you a goal, he'll make a big play. Like he'd probably be out there for defensive draws as well. I think he's someone you can use in multiple situations as well. And I think him being a UFA this upcoming season, I think that he's going to be one of the most sought after UFAs if he doesn't resign. And I could see him getting a really big payday. I'm not saying like 10 mil or anything, but I could definitely see him getting 8 somewhere. I don't think that's crazy to say. But yeah, I thought this was pretty close, and that's the way I lean. So I'll throw it to the taller of you two, and we'll start there.
Murray, that's you, right?
In spirit.
I don't know. This is pretty cut and dry for me.
It's decently close.
Why did Larkin have to have that horrible year?
It's decently close.
It is okay. Here's my thing.
Well, I'll say it.
I don't know. It's hard, bro. My words aren't coming to my brain as quickly as they used to. For me, defensively, they break even as much as that might surprise people. I don't think for me, what I've seen of Horvat's play and what the numbers say, he isn't as like good of a defensive player as he may be sought out to be. And maybe that's because he does too much, but I think Larkin also has as much of a workload, if not worse. And he has played with significantly less talent over the years until this year and last year, maybe. But like, I think that he has more scoring potential, and defensively, I think they either break even or Larkin is a bit better, in my opinion. But I think also that Larkin has a bit more in terms of game breaking abilities, where whether it's speed or I think that a shot is in a similar range as Horvat, but I think he has a significantly better playmaking ability. So for me, that's why I would go with Larkin. I think that he creates a lot more opportunities. He drives offense a lot better. I think with that stuff being said, I don't think that any sort of defensive discrepancy, if there is any, makes Horvat better than Larkin.
I think you're an idiot.
Bro, stop saying that, please, bro. I don't have the capacity to answer that right now.
I was gonna say it regardless of what you said, just for fun.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards Horvat.
Ooh.
This is just typical.
I'll tell you why I'm leaning towards Horvat, because I don't think you're giving him the credit he deserves in terms of his playmaking.
Horvat, he has 4 assists in 12 games.
He has 4 assists this season. I'll give you that. But career-wise, I don't think they're that far off
In terms of playmaking?
in terms of their assists. Are they that far off in assists career-wise?
I don't, but even if they're even in assists, for the majority of his career, Larkin has been playing with scrubs, whereas
Yeah,
Horvat
yeah,
has been playing with Pedersen,
yeah.
Besser, I guess. JT Miller, Connor Garland came into the mix. He's had Hughes. Like I think that he's definitely had more talents around him.
Guys haven't been there the whole time. Like
They've been there longer than any guy that Larkin has had in the last however many years.
Larkin
Guys,
And what do you think?
for 1
He
year.
had 21 assists in 70 games last year.
how much did Larkin have?
38.
But like I'm saying, like in their career wise, like per season, like are they close to any years? Are they like what's it looking like here?
Larkin
14,
had a really 34, 41, 47.
and then Horvat is
Horvat's
what?
rounded out around like 30,
34,
25.
31, 25.
Horvat,
Okay.
Horvat
Yeah.
isn't, I don't think Horvat, like for playmaking for him, I don't think you're even looking at that as much because
Yeah,
he plays in the middle he plays like the bumper position on the power play too, right? Like he's more so there to
actually considering
score goals offensively.
All right, guys. So I'm glad we all agreed on Bo Horvat there. That's so good that we all agreed on that.
No, I have a lot of players that I compared to Dylan Larkin before Bo Horvat. One of them
A
being
lot.
no.
I'm actually leaning
no.
I'm leaning more towards Larkin now, just considering his the lack of talent he played with in his first few seasons.
I would compare more so to Connor McDavid.
The Larkin.
I'm joking. No, it is honestly it is a pretty close comparison. I just lean Larkin. I think more so level of talent around him, sure, but like I think he's shown more of an ability to do things on his own while still being responsible defensively. And I think the only thing about Larkin that I don't like sometimes is how annoying he is and how much he complains. But if I'm being completely honest, I've seen the same from Bo Horvat at the same time, so it kind of just cancels out.
But I feel like his is more justified, as in Vancouver is just a nuts place to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's any Canadian market. Detroit, they've got a lot of fans.
They do.
I don't know about
annoying,
but I would say Detroit's a pretty intense place to play if your team is good.
Detroit is very much like when they're not winning, it's like way more of a big deal than like places like LA or Chicago even, like because they had such like a standard for success for like their entire existence until the last like 6 years when they went into a full-on rebuild, which they made him the center of, and now he's gonna get paid for it too. So because did he get signed or no?
Who?
Did he get an extension?
Larkin?
Yeah. Or is it?
So.
I need to see.
I actually don't know.
Okay. I understand the point of playing with less talent, but I also feel like you guys are overselling the talent they have in Vancouver because they haven't had a competitive team almost the entire time that Bo Horvat's been there. Yeah, JT Miller's had good seasons, had the 199-point season. Pedersen has had like one really good season, and then he's
had
like
multiple good seasons, bro. I don't know.
No, I said one really good season.
They've both been the exact same seasons.
I'm not done. My point. Thank you. Brock Besser, as you brought up a lot, is like a very streaky scorer. Connor Garland, I wouldn't say is anywhere near a game breaker. I don't know. Like I feel like JT Miller is kind of like the guy he's been playing like with as like a more of a game breaker. Like Pedersen has his moments. Then I know at times like it was like, oh, Athanasiou and Larkin, and
Bro,
that's
Pedersen had 235 points in 257 games.
Okay, my point still is that Pedersen is not playing up to a standard where I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's like Bo Horvat is playing with like someone who's making him get all these points. Like I think Bo Horvat does enough himself. He's not like playing with Patrick Kane or something. Like Patrick Kane can make Omar get 30 goals in the NHL.
That's the thing though. Like Horvat's whole thing of how he scores goals, the majority of which are on the power play, are standing in the bumper spot waiting for passes from either JT Miller or Pedersen or whoever else is there. Like that's the majority of how he scores his major goal totals. Like it's
That's like saying a majority of Ovechkin's goals are from his one-timer spot, which isn't necessarily the case because they both score goals in lots of different
That's
ways.
not true because like Ovechkin scores maybe like 5 to 6 goals from there every year, whereas Horvat's like 10 of his like 29 or 30 goals are from there, whereas Ovechkin's 56 or 7 are from there. So that's not really like a point.
It
You're saying
seems
a
like a lot more than
third of his goals
No,
are
that's what
bumped
I'm saying.
in the power play.
If you looked at the 50 goals that he scored last year, it was like not even 6 were there. Their power play was horrible. He had less than
yeah,
5 on there.
yeah.
This year he scored.
You're saying a third of Bo Horvat's goals are bumper on the power play.
Yes.
There's no way. I want you to. This is your homework. I want you to watch his goal highlights. I will give you. I will kiss you on the mouth if that's like if he has 10 or more on the power play from that spot last year.
He had 13 goals on the power play and of his 31 last year.
I would still be shocked.
Five
If
of his 10 goals this year also on the power play. And he doesn't move from that spot. So where else is he going to score from?
you're acting like players don't rotate on the power play.
But bro, the Vancouver power play is every other person is rotating. Horvat stays in the middle.
There's still there's okay. Even if it's
Okay,
not
but your whole thing is that like Bo Horvat creates more plays for himself, whereas you're discounting Pedersen's involvement in that, which isn't the case. Pedersen creates a lot of chances for Horvat, and it's not much the other way around. He doesn't really create chances for himself as much. He has like maybe once in a while he goes on like a rush or whatever, but the majority of his goals come from other players making plays for him. And fair enough to him that he gets in the right spots, but it isn't necessarily the case that he's creating those plays for himself.
then you could argue the same thing with someone like Nazem Kadri because he was the bumper on the Colorado power play, and that's what
I would agree with you. I would 100% agree with you. Nazem Kadri and Bo Horvat are comparables for me. They both play a similar type of game, and he scores from similar types of places, and it's the same thing on the power play. Even on Calgary, he's doing the same thing on the power play. But again, he has that 1 or 2 rush a year that he, skates past a guy or does one deke and gets scores. But he's not the one that's creating plays the majority of the time.
Horvat had a crazy goal last year, if not two, like in back-to-back games.
What did I just say? 1 or 2. I'm saying it's the same with Kadri. Like, I don't know.
I think Larkin's speed definitely makes him like a different kind of threat than Bo Horvat. But I think they also just play different games. Like I think Horvat's more of the like I'm not saying exactly like Zach Hyman, but like you need a guy that for you those skilled guys can complement them well. And I think that's what he does. He's like you said, sure, great in the slot, but also like um Hoglander, Garland, Besser, Pedersen aren't necessarily going to be fighting for the puck in the corners and winning those
That's
battles.
literally all Garland does, bro.
Okay, he's like 5'2", 120 pounds.
Yeah,
So
that's the name of his game. If Garland didn't go into corners and like play the chippy style, then he'd be like Connor Garland is like Brendan Gallagher.
okay, sure, but I'm saying Bo Horvat's probably more effective at that, and that's what you need for these other players to be successful too, to get them the puck, whether it's the third assist or whatever as well.
Third assist. Oh yeah.
Like you go retrieve the puck, throw it to the defenseman.
I'm not discounting that on Horvat. I just don't think it's as valuable as Larkin's playmaking skills in every facet of the game. Plus, he doesn't really shy away from the tough side of the game either. He's not like a William Nylander or Evgeny Kuznetsov where he's not going to go into corners.
We have a William Nylander slander of that corner in the past like 4 episodes.
I did. That's why I threw Kuznetsov into the mix there as well. Because realistically, he's the same as well. He just doesn't get scrutinized for it as much. But Larkin is not someone that shies away from that. And fair enough, when he goes into the corners, he does get into fights where he punches people for no reason. But I guess I'd rather have that than Kuznetsov slashing someone in the face. But yeah.
Speaking of slashing people in the face that we forgot to talk about.
Bro, bro, he's not even worth my time. Get out of
here. This guy.
He's turning into the version of Brad Marchand that we all hated, but not because he was really good. It was because he was just an idiot, where he was just trying to hurt people for no reason.
Did you like
And
Brady more than Matthew?
mhm,
You like Brady more than Matthew?
I like Brady as a person more than Matthew.
Yeah, I would say Brady.
Uh,
Matthew's the
I-
better player.
Matthew's just like a very much better player. It's just
I actually, I'm pretty sure they have exact same amount of points right now.
Right
okay.
now.
Yes, okay, but regardless, for me, Matthew, he all of, like the skill that comes with him it gets very much overshadowed when he does the stupid shit that he or stupid stuff that he does. I'm sorry, bleep that. My mom might listen to this an hour and a half in. But it's just the stuff that he does too is just pointless. Okay, you're losing by 1 and there's like 10 seconds left. Let me just go gouge a goalie's eye out for no reason. And one of the most respected goalies in the league.
There was actually 0.8 seconds left. The game was over.
Well, there you go.
I agree.
But that's the thing. Marchand too. Like Marchand, he was so bad at that before that he gets suspended for 35 or 13 games or whatever, and then you'd have 85 points in 68 games. Like you have that 1 year, but you're still like what do we do? We're gonna miss you for 13 games of the season. And then now he's playing 80, 82 games. He's putting up 100 points. He's doing less of the stupid stuff, and he's saving it or like doing it tastefully, which I mean I guess he does tastefully. He's not licking people
He's
anymore.
like, he's not looking at anyone.
Whereas Matthew is heading towards the early Marchand phase where you're like, okay, he's gonna do something questionable every game that may or may not get him suspended, may or may not get him in the box for 5 minutes for no reason, and just take him away from a team that needs him way more than a team like Calgary, where at that time he could do that dumb stuff and they still had a bunch of people around him that could produce. In Florida, the offense relies on him a lot more than it did in Calgary because he is the second best forward on that team. And if he's not there, then you have Barkov there with like a lot of mid-range, like 2 to 3 line guys. So
I would
he
say
can't
Sam
really.
Hyder than that.
Okay, yeah, Sam Hyder is good, but the thing is, I'd say Sam Hyder is also like a good second liner. He like as a first liner, he can work. It's just you still need that production from Matthew to make up for a lot of things that they also have on defense as well, because they don't have a very good defense and their goaltending is a little shaky. So you need him on the ice. That's all I'm saying. And missing him for 2 games, fine, like that sucks, but it just can't keep happening. But he's not going to change the way he plays because I said so. So,
Well, since Brady Tkachuk was named captain, he has a .95 points per game average, and he missed training camp. So I think we all know who the best Tkachuk is.
All right, that's
Jason
where we
Roberts.
end it.
True, it's true, and he missed the whole training camp. He didn't like score for like 10 games.
Matthew's better. Matthew is a better player, but Kachuk is less of an
I
idiot.
think it's closer
No,
than you think. Closer than you think. Closer.
Well,
Than
let's
I
let a
understand.
season go by and let's see where Brady's at, and then we'll compared to Matthew in at least 60 games. Let's see.
Yeah,
What
we'll
is
see.
it?
We'll see
he's
if
getting
Matthew.
minimum 70 points if he plays the full season.
We'll see if Matthew even makes.
You think Brady's
going
going to get 70 points in the full season?
Minimum if he plays the full season.
I think he can. I think that Matthew's significantly more skilled player, and I think he's going to get more points than that. So
Yeah, 70 points, sure.
but that doesn't make him a better player for me. They're also like Matthew's significantly better defensively than
Because Matthew is potentially a 100-point player still.
I think that they're skilled in different ways, just like us, and that's why you should subscribe to our podcast and follow us and tune in.
Brady Matthew bet that really?
And tune in next week for episode number. We'll pick a player then, but 12.